All right, let's just jump right in. Everybody's talking about generative AI, but there's this massive canyon between a cool looking demo and a real product that actually delivers value. So today, let's unpack the hard lessons, the stuff people have learned taking AI from a proof of concept all the way into production.
First things first, we've got to get this straight in our heads. Generative AI, it is not the magical pill that's going to solve everything. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype and think you can just plug in an AI and poof, all your problems are gone. But the reality, well, it's a whole lot messier than that.
And look, this isn't just some theory we're talking about. The insights we're about to go through come straight from the front lines. We're talking over 200 enterprise-level GenAI deployments. This is stuff that was learned the hard way, in the trenches, building real systems for actual customers. Which really brings us to the big question for this whole explainer, right? What actually separates that fun little proof of concept you built in a week from a valuable, bulletproof production system that people rely on? It's a huge question, and the answer, well, it's probably not what you're thinking. When most teams get started with AI, their focus immediately goes here, to the models and the tools. Which LLM is the best one? Should we use this vector database or that one? All the attention goes to the tech stack. But here's the lesson, and it's a tough one to swallow. All of that stuff, it's incidental. It's not the main event. It's not the thing that's going to make or break your project in the long run. And why is that? It's because these things are always going to change. The hottest model today, it's going to be yesterday's news in 6 months. That shiny new tool everyone's talking about will be replaced by something else. If you build your whole strategy around these things that come and go, you're basically building on quicksand. So if the models and tools don't really matter that much, then what does? The answer is what we call your AI moat. Just think of it like a real castle moat. It's the part of your system that creates a lasting, defensible competitive advantage. It's the stuff your competitors can't just go out and copy tomorrow. This right here is where you need to be focusing your energy. Your moat, your foundation. It's built out of your unique inputs and outputs. And most importantly, your evals, how you actually measure if the thing is working. Everything else, the models, the tools, the architecture, that's all just the incidental stuff that sits on top of this solid foundation.
In fact, you really cannot overstate how important evaluations are. Randall Hunt, who's the source of all this experience, put it perfectly. He said if he were to channel his inner Steve Ballmer, from Microsoft, it wouldn't be developers. No, it would be evals. That is the absolute heart of a great AI system. And look, building good evals is a journey. It almost always starts with what you could call a simple vibe check. That gut reaction. Does this feel right? But you can't stop there. From there, you've got to build out a real eval set where you intentionally throw all sorts of tricky edge cases at your system to see if it breaks. And then finally, you get to hard metrics. And they don't have to be complicated. Sometimes a simple true or false, did the AI do the job, yes or no, is the most powerful metric you can possibly have.
Okay, so with that whole framework in mind, your moat, your evals, let's dig into some of the really practical, hard-won lessons from the trenches of those 200-plus projects. So here's a classic one. The assumption is always that a faster, more powerful model is automatically a better model. But the reality is that a really great user experience, or UX, can totally make up for a slower model. If you can keep the user engaged, maybe show them that you're working on something while the model thinks, you can still win even if you're not the fastest. But, and this is a big but, UX can't fix everything. There's a limit. And this quote just lays out the brutal, simple business reality of it all. If you are slower and more expensive, you will not be used, period. Your product has to deliver value, and value is always going to be a function of how well it works and how much it costs. This all comes back to one thing, knowing your user. And here are 2 perfect little stories about that. One team built this amazing voice bot for nurses, but they completely forgot that hospitals are loud, chaotic places. The nurses hated it. All they wanted was a simple chat interface. In another case, a product was sending these giant 200-megabyte PDFs to users in remote areas with terrible internet. The fix was so simple. Just send them a 1-page screenshot.
Both of these show that even the most amazing tech is totally useless if it doesn't fit the user's actual world.
You know what's been really surprising? How much the thinking has shifted on this. A year or so ago, it was all about expensive, complicated fine-tuning. But as the models themselves have gotten way more powerful, simple prompt engineering has turned out to be, well, unreasonably effective. A lot of the time, just spending an hour crafting a better prompt can get you better results than weeks of fine-tuning for a tiny fraction of the cost. Now, all of this leads us to what might be the most important question of all. Is this thing going to bankrupt your company? We have to talk about AI economics, because you can build the most incredible AI system in the history of the world, but if it costs so much to run that it drains your bank account, then what's the point?
And every single technical choice you make has a dollar sign attached. Take vector stores, for instance. You could go with something like Redis. It's crazy fast because it runs entirely in memory, but it is also extremely expensive. Or you could use a Postgres extension like pgvector. It's going to be slower because it's reading from the disk, but it is dramatically cheaper. There's no one right answer, you see. It's a trade-off. It's always a trade-off that you have to make based on your specific needs and, of course, your budget. So how do you keep these costs from spiraling out of control? Well, here are 4 really practical strategies. First, prompt caching. That's a no-brainer, right? Don't pay to answer the same question twice. Second, batching. You can get huge discounts. We're talking up to 50% on services like Bedrock if you group your requests. Third, optimizing how you use your tools, making sure the AI isn't making expensive API calls when it doesn't need to. And finally, and this one is so important, context management. You have to constantly ask, what's the absolute minimum amount of context I need to send to get the right answer? Every extra token, every extra word costs you money.
So let's just bring this all home with one final, really important thought. After you go through all of this, all these lessons from the trenches, you start to realize something. The goal here isn't to build the absolute smartest, most technically impressive AI on the planet. No. The real goal, the only goal, is to build the most valuable system. A system that actually understands its users, that's built on a solid, defensible mode of data and evaluations, and that runs on economics that actually make sense for the business. That's it. That is how you go from a cool demo to a real product that actually matters and lasts.